Next is our public participation. We did not have anyone sign up for public participation, so we will proceed to our action agenda. Number 13 are items considered in executive session. May I have a motion? Mr. Gant.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move that we approve the selected employment items shown in Exhibit A.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Ms. Hammond seconds. Any discussion? Seeing none, all in favor, raise your hands. All opposed, that passes 7-0. That ends our action agenda. Next, we'll go on to our discussion agenda. The next is the Magnet Schools of America grant.
I've asked Dr. Milton to both give us an update on where we are with our Magnet grant and plans we're hoping for the future. Dr. Milton.
Thank you, Dr. Hefner. Madam Chair, board members, before I begin the official presentation that brings Exhibit C hopefully to life for you, I need to pause because this has truly been a collaborative effort. I'd like to say a very special thanks to Mr. Bounds, Mr. Harris, Mr. Richardson, and Dr. Jakes. Each of our departments have been instrumental to make this a success to this point of implementation. So I'd like to say a public thanks to each of these people and also to their departments for their assistance. In addition to that, I would like to say thank you to all of our schools. Whether the school is directly involved with Magnet and Choice or not, each of our schools have taken great ownership and commitment to make sure that this can be a success, providing choice to all of the students in School District 5, whether they chose to leave their home zone school or whether they chose to stay at their home zone school. We can successfully say this has been a systematic effort. So from us to them, thank you to our principals that are here and those that couldn't be here. It has truly been a District 5 systematic effort. This evening, my hope is to bring you an update of our success and then what we see as being next on the horizon for School District 5. The first slide you see defines the current project that we have in effect that was funded back in October of 2013, known as Project Access. And you see the acronym spelled out there: Academics, Choice, Careers, Environment equals Student Success. This was funded in 2013 in October. It's a federal magnet grant through the Magnet Schools Assistance Program, and we were able to secure funds for the cycle of 3 years, which is driven by the federal government. We were able to achieve an award for $10.3 million to get the program started in School District 5 that we had designed. The programs that we started back in 2013 are the 5 that you see here of their logos. Seven Oaks is our media magnet. They focus on engagement through digital media and interactive learning academics. Environmental Sciences at Dutchfork Elementary, From the Mountains to the Sea, is their theme. Obviously, our Irmo High School or School of the Arts, we're infusing into all the curriculum and using a global approach to our curriculum instruction at Irmo High School. In the center, you see I Am, Irmo Middle School. They, too, have a global citizenship awareness through leadership, communication, through the arts, and also through entrepreneurship, making projects alive to learn more about the world, not just here in our community, but beyond. And then finally, you see Spring Hill High School, our Career Pathways Magnet. The careers that they started there with the magnets there: engineering, entertainment, entrepreneurial, environment studies, and also exercise science. The next slide you see is actually an excerpt from Dr. Hefner's Vision 2015. At the time he came to School District 5 and started casting this vision for us, these were the challenges that he had for us. He charged us to use the optimum space of existing space to make sure we were maximizing the use of our facility resources. Wanted to make sure that we were enhancing the ability of each of our schools to compete effectively with other schools in our district and also in our community. And then finally, he wanted to make sure that we were offering unique educational needs of our students, offering choice, keeping them here in School District 5. So that's where we have gotten and why we're where we are today. So we're going to look ahead now to what we hope to pursue next. So this is our proposal to present to you this evening. Our magnet writer, Allison Kirby, has designed this known as Discover 5. Discover 5 will expand magnet offerings in School District 5 that will broaden the opportunities for students to discover their potential through enhanced academic pathways and also choices. And hopefully you will see this is going to create a systemic alignment that all of our elementary schools feed into a middle school path, that feed into a high school path, all of which are college and career readiness for the 21st century skills that we are teaching in all of our schools. So the proposal that we're going to introduce you all to tonight is for MSAT funding, which the next cycle will be 2016. We're asking to add 4 additional magnet programs or to expand in existing themes that are already in existence in School District 5. We have completed surveys within some of our schools that are new to this effort, and I can stand here tonight and say we've successfully received over 80% of support in the schools that will be adding a new option as far as a magnet theme or choice. Our first one I want to highlight is actually a magnet that's in existence already. H.E. Corley has had a leadership magnet. They're in their 3rd year with the leadership magnet. Our hope is to tap into a Montessori magnet that will emphasize personalized learning and also 21st century learning skills. We're fortunate Dr. Franchini, who's here with us tonight, here she is in the back, I saw her come in. Dr. Franchini has experience with Montessori in a previous district, so she can bring expertise through her involvement in another district of making sure this was done in compliance with research, but also to fidelity. Our hope is to start with the preschool cohort and then grow the program throughout years so that we can show that students are making a gain using personalized learning and 21st century learning skills as a school within the school at H.E. Corley. Next, we're looking at Leap Part Elementary. If you remember, Leap Part has had a STEAM magnet in effect for 6 years now, focusing on engineering. Well, Principal Brown, who's here tonight, and her lead teacher, Denise Collins-Bennett, they are trying to look towards the future. What can they do to improve and attract more students to Leap Part, taking the option of STEAM and now expand from STEM and expand it to STEAM. And the A here is going to be different than what you're going to hear following up in the presentation, because the A in this STEAM is about emphasizing the creativity and the innovation. Principal Brown hopes to take new curriculum and to align it to make sure that the skills that are being taught at Leap Part are in direct alignment to 21st century skills, the profile of the South Carolina graduate, to make sure there's a rigorous instructional program being offered at Leap Part, so the gains that she and her staff have made with students will continue to accelerate. Next, you're going to see the new programs that we're looking to add in School District 5. Principal Lagans, who's here on the back row, and 2 of her teachers, Lisa Brooks, music teacher. She's a very shy, quiet person. Yes. And then Ms. Compton was here earlier, art teacher. I'm not sure if she's here now. And then Laura Buff here is one of our strings teachers, travels all over School District 5. They've actually come up with an acronym known as MVP, Champions, using the current logo. What does MVP stand for? It's a new magnet program we're introducing in School District 5. The whole school arts, the M comes from media, the V comes from visual, and the P comes from performing arts instruction. So different from Leap Part, focusing on innovation creativity, Nursery Road is looking at more of an MVP, media, visual, and performing arts instruction, which of course, hope you'll see, will directly feed into the theme at Irmo High School. In addition to that, we're looking to partner Irmo High School and the center. Dr. Hampton is here representing Mr. Regal tonight, who's in class at USC. Thank you, Dr. Hampton, for being here. And Dr. Couch is here on the back row, directly behind me. He and Mr. Regal have gotten together and brainstormed what could Irmo High School and the center do to partner to bring a more rigorous program of connecting the IB program along with a career-related program at the center. So this is a quite innovative idea, we believe. We combine the academic rigor of the IB program along with the advanced technical opportunities that the center offers. So it's going to be a dual enrollment between Irmo High School and also the center. The next steps that we've designed thus far are to look towards surveying our community to make sure the interests that our community has are in alignment with the vision that we've drafted thus far. We also need to start to identify budget requests. What kinds of things have our schools thought about that they're going to need to offer for professional development, for resources, equipment, materials, those kinds of things. And of course, professional development will drive what we do. Staffing will certainly be affected by this, so the third bullet that you see about developing a sustainability plan is going to be instrumental for us to look at from a financial lens, but also through a lens of staffing to make sure the things that we can pursue can actually be continued once the grant has ended. Now, one thing we're waiting on to differ, if you notice the initial grant that we currently have was a 3-year cycle. One of the options being discussed at the federal government level is possibly increasing that to a 4-year sustainability implementation, which of course would give our schools more time to implement. However, we're not confident yet that will change from 3 years to 4 years. Of course, this is our effort here, School District 5, where every choice is a great choice. Dr. Heffron, that's my report for discussion this evening. if I can accept questions, I can certainly do that. If you have something specific for a team member here in the audience tonight, we can bring them to the podium as well.
I would just welcome questions from the board. Thank you for that great overview there.
Are there any questions? Ms. Hammond and then Mr. White.
I think it's a great vision. I have two questions. Do we have enough data to, or is it a certain amount of years before we can really evaluate the success of each one? And do we, and this might be Dr. Hefner's question, do we evaluate it by the number of kids? I know the goal of a magnet is to give choices and to allow people from anywhere to come to a school that offers the exact curriculum they're really interested in. I guess my question as a board member, because I certainly would want to fund these things where we need to, but I also want to see how they're working. I guess how do we evaluate? It may take a certain number of years, and that's my question.
Well, there's a requirement for evaluation for the to receive the federal grant, and so an evaluation is ongoing in progress, and Dr. Milton probably has the details of that, but there is an evaluation dimension to the magnet grant we already have and any one that we would ever get in the future, if you wish to comment how that works.
Yes, sir. And yes, ma'am, that's a great question, because accepting $10.3 million certainly makes us responsible and fiscally reportable to the federal government or anyone else that should give us funds. The MSAP program is actually designed for 3 different tenets, I would say. First is reduce minority isolation. Secondly is to make sure there's equity and opportunities. And thirdly, to make sure there's achievement that's being recorded as far as gains. So internally, we're always assessing the objectives that we've written in our previous grant that's currently in effect. So the objectives that we write for the coming grant will be something we will measure and monitor throughout the implementation. But the federal government does send in an external team to do an external review where they have to collect artifacts for the reviewers and auditors to review. Interviews are held. Dr. Hefner was interviewed the last time they were here as well. So they interview people, all various stakeholders, from parents to students to school walkthroughs to review of artifacts. So I can assure you we are certainly accountable.
And I think, to follow up on that, I really know we're that. One of my things is, in my idea, a goal of a magnet school, we are trying to draw people to that particular curriculum. I guess, do we ever look not at the good job we're doing? I know we're doing that. Mm-hmm. But I'm thinking, do we have to look at how many it draws, how many of our population should we put money more into one program over another program? Mm-hmm. Because it's one that is more popular and more kids and parents want that. I think I'm asking, do we look at the number that choose that school as a part of the evaluation?
There's an internal evaluation where we monitor. Mr. Harris can share with you how he monitors that data. We want to make sure that every choice is attracting families. If we were to see there's a low response rate, then maybe that's not a choice. It's really magnetizing that school to invite people in, either to stay in the school they've been zoned to attend or to come to that school they've not been zoned to attend. It may be igniting a passion. We would certainly hope we could expose students to a variety of interests so that by the time they get to post-high school experience, that they're better prepared to know more of what they want rather than getting there and using that freshman year in college, sophomore year in college, and then changing their major after that. So that rate, we've not gotten to that point of implementation yet to gauge that, but we can say that of the choices that have been, the schools have been open to choice, 100% have been chosen. Mm-hmm. So we do know this is gaining interest. Now, I think Mr. Harris and I would both agree. We can report numbers, but we would also say we're still in the level of infancy where people don't always know about it, but we're gaining interest, we're gaining popularity, which is why the PR is so important. Mr. Bounds and Katrina have been instrumental to make sure we're messaging this in a way to truly reach our community. Just today, our system committee met, and Mr. Harris is helping us get the addresses of homeschool students because we have that information, so we're going to research and tap into that community, see if we can draw them back to School District 5.
Is there any competition for the, like I was thinking, Seven Oaks was more of that media arts, and then, or where we had is it Lee Park with STEMs, and you're adding that other element to make it stream. Mm-hmm. They still have sort of a common thread, don't they? Mm-hmm. Because they're all going to, say, to Irma, where you're trying to connect that with the IB and the arts, and there's a big picture to it.
Yes, ma'am, and there is overlapping, and I have to make sure that I say the schools, and standing here at Chapin Elementary, this is a prime example. The curriculum program here at Chapin Elementary is strong and viable.
Right.
There is a unique personality to Chapin Elementary. Even though we have an agreed-upon curriculum in School District 5, the Magna offers the lens of how you implement that instruction to make it differ, to better reach the learners in that school. But I would argue all of our schools are very successful academically. It's just back to those 3 bullets that I shared earlier about using optimal space. We want to make sure that we're filling our schools, that we don't have empty seats there. So that helps us know which schools are the right candidates to pull into this magnet idea.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Watson.
Thank you, Ms. Hammond. Mr. White?
Yeah, some of it you just touched on, but I guess I'm trying to understand if we get a grant of like $10.3 million, or you get another grant that you're applying to, when we, of course, we deal with budgets every year, and we have to deal with schools, and just in my simplistic way of looking at things, we have a student-teacher ratio, we have a certain number of administrators in each school, and we have a budget, and we fill all those slots. Where does the $10.3 million get spent? Is it spent on personnel? Is it spent on curriculum? Is it spent on training? And then you're giving me all these nods. Are those,
Yes,
are those
yeah.
answers? And then,
Check, check.
and then- but when the grant goes away, is
Right.
the program self-sustaining, or does it need more money? Or is it now installed? I guess what's the efficacy of this once the grant is no longer there?
Well, I would say first, without the numbers to support my case, so to speak, I would never argue against you, Mr. White, in court, that's for sure. But to explain that, we have invested a lot in our people. If our magnet schools, if our MSAP schools were here tonight, Dr. Hampton could weigh in on this. We have invested a lot with professional development, bringing in people such as cultural competency. Dr. Elam has worked with all 5 of our magnet schools, and because of that, our schools are beginning to look at their achievement data a little bit differently. Let's look at subgroup. How are subgroups performing, not just looking at overall percentage of how many students met the expectation of level proficiency, but let's break it down to look more specifically at how subsets of students are performing. We can say that we have provided some equipment, such as percussion equipment at Irmo High School that School District 5 did not have to fund, but we had that built into the grant to make sure we could provide the equipment to bring that to life. As Seven Oaks were here, Ms. Wilson would tell you we've invested with Chromebooks, the Google Chromebooks such as our middle schools are using. Dutch Brook Elementary, the same kinds of things. So we know that there's going to be a life range of those kinds of equipment and devices, but through that, Mr. Bounds and Mr. Earl have worked with that sustainability plan, because by the point that these devices are out of date and we not need to start doing replacement, there'll be a plan already in process of how to make sure elementary is getting a turnover, rather than, yes, that was good that you had it, but now you get to delete all those pieces of equipment and never use them again. But fortunately, those devices should last an average of 5 to 7 years is our hope. Does that answer all those pieces you asked?
I think so. What
Okay.
you're basically saying is there is a good piece of this is sort of sustainable once the training and the different processes.
I would
installed.
emphasize a good piece of it. It's not one-to-one. However,
Personnel?
we work very hard to make sure that we're spending our money on like one-time expenses, like they bought the grand piano at the Irmo Center for the Arts, and on professional development, which hopefully will stick with our people for an entire career. And Dr. Jakes, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think most of the positions that we funded from this grant, I think we're down to about 4 people that those positions might not get continued. The others are, so I think overall it's a very sustainable plan. Is it 100%? Not 100%, but I think pretty close.
Well, one of the things when we talked about mood and the technology, and it's nice to hear that there's Chromebooks and stuff coming out, but when we were looking at it, I think, Beth, you invited me to meet with that committee that was evaluating that, but we did a lot of sort of scribbling on napkins, talking about stuff, but technology also displaces a lot of other costs sometimes. I mean, is that still, textbooks and
Certainly has the
audio-visual
potential
devices
to.
and stuff? I mean, are there enhancements coming with that as you get more technology into more grade levels?
Enhancements as in like an electronic textbook, those are gaining popularity, but the state of South Carolina still funds for you to get the traditional textbook that we all had when we were in school. But we do offer more of the auxiliary resources, I would say, to supplement the textbook, particularly for students that may not have internet access at home. We need to make sure they have a textbook that they can rely on, because if you only had an electronic device and you got home and didn't have that access, then you really can't maximize the use of that textbook. So we're trying to move towards more of a balanced opportunity, but right now we're still more heavily of the paper version of a textbook with the offerings of electronic textbooks to supplement.
And Mr. Haltwanger.
Yes, I guess my question, Dr. Milton, is in determining the, I guess the specific magnet area.
Yes, sir.
What's the basis for determining what a school's area would be? What's the criteria, I guess, for that?
Do you mean the theme, Mr. Haltwanger, or okay. I'll use H.E. Corley as an example. One of the things that Superintendent Spearman is asking districts to do is to pursue Montessori as an option for personalized learning. So districts are being challenged to find at least one school that will do something with personalized learning. We're fortunate. We already have a lot of that going on with our project-based learning implementation, even in schools that are not magnet schools. So that's happening in School District 5. But we felt like the Montessori idea would really bring more credence to that, because we have families that are interested in Montessori. It's a looping experience where if I am a first grader, I will see the same teacher for first and second grade, very much student-directed, where my teacher sets up learning stations for me that are curriculum standards-based. I'll work through it as a learner, and then the teacher monitors how I'm doing, and maybe I need to redo that activity the next day because I wasn't quite ready for it. So the teacher really has to do a lot of adjustment, and the equipment in the room with Montessori, Dr. Franchini would tell you, is quite expensive. So in School District 5, we are fearful, can we actually afford the materials to put into a classroom without putting the taxpayers in an imposition? But with a grant like this, we could properly equip a Montessori classroom to get it going so that the cohort could travel through H.E. Corley. So as far as the other themes itself, LEAP part, of course, they're seeing success with STEM. They were just recognized as a Title I Distinguished School for South Carolina, and last school year went to a national conference to be recognized. But Principal Brown felt like adding the A for more creativity and innovation would really strengthen that program. Nursery Road has, I understand, a notebook about 4 or 5 inches thick, Principal Lagans, of things that they've been collecting, because Nursery Road is a school that naturally leans towards the arts, and because of that, students are interested, and we know that taps into a lot of abilities of our students. If you're interested in it, you're more likely to be passionate about it and more likely to have relevant curriculum associated with those learning. And then the IRMO and IRMO High School and the Center partnership, we just think is creative and innovative, maximizing the strength that we already have at the center and maximizing the IB program more rigor to attract kids to Irmo High School to IB that may not have had that as an interest before because of the center partnership. Does that answer your question, Mr. Haltwanger?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Other questions? I have a question, Dr. Milton.
Sure.
One of the concerns that I have, and I love all these ideas, and I love the magnet programs, but it is the sustainability that we're talking about. And even though we're down to just 4 positions, we know what that means. You have the salaries, and then you have the benefits. And then we're thinking about adding some more magnets, which are wonderful. And, especially I love the idea of the Montessori, but I really am concerned because we know from this last budget session and the one before that we really struggle
Right.
with this. So I don't know what the answer is, but I really hope that we are looking very carefully at the way we approach these. And it's never good to hire people and then say,
Absolutely.
we love this program, this is great, but we can't afford to keep you in place anymore. And then the program either is not quite as 100% as we want it to be. So that's my fear that I have for moving forward, is to make sure that this is really something that we can afford in the budget.
And we appreciate you bringing that forward, because that's part of the conversation that we have had. We feel like the first grant cycle, this was our first experience in School District 5 of pursuing MSAP funding. So one of the charges we've given to our teams in drafting, and they'll probably start nodding their, Ms. Lagan's already is, we've charged them, make sure whatever you ask for is sustainable. particularly when it comes to employment. So I'm going to look to Dr. Jakes because she and her team have done excessive research to make sure that we know the current grant and the cycle that's ending, as Dr. Hefner reported, but also as we look ahead to what might be drafted into this grant with very much sensitivity to just what you've described. So Dr. Jakes.
Absolutely. So as we're reacting to the current grant, what we're finding is we have two categories. We have our continuing contract employees, and we have our letter of agreement employees. So at the beginning of the grant cycle, we have the conversation, if you have a continuing contract, you're certified in multiple areas, you will be able to fill perhaps a vacancy at another school in a similar subject area. If you have a specific skill set that is not a certified area, you may have a letter of agreement, and similar to some of the elimination of positions like permanent subs, we would look within our existing vacancies to offer employment to those individuals. So we're looking at that, and we are in a very good place for our existing grant. But as we're moving forward, as we're meeting, as we're talking and brainstorming, we're looking very specifically at allocations, at numbers, at budgeting to ensure that we don't just have a unique wish or desire, but that we're looking very systematically at how that position would fit into school allocations and could be sustainable. And again, knowing that should that no longer be funded through the grant, we would have a strategic plan in place to place that continuing contract employee in future years.
Well, how does that impact the program? Then if you're putting, say we have these 4 employees and we no longer have the grant money, then they're doing very valuable work and, to continue this magnet program. And I'm assuming we're going under the idea that we're going to continue these. And so what happens to the duties that these 4 people are currently doing?
And that's where the partnership comes in so closely with instruction and with HR. We're supporting in terms of looking at number, the class size, those pieces to get an idea of what the projection would be. And specifically instruction is looking at that program, at that offering. Is it something unique, or is it simply an emphasis on science or another area of certification? So that's where the partnership comes into play. Instruction plays such a key role in determining what that area of expertise is, and I'm making sure that we have that strategic plan in place and that we're looking at the big picture district-wide.
And if I could add to that, just so that you can see how we've had these conversations, if a school is implementing a new curriculum, we need to have time to write that curriculum. So if I'm at school ABC, as an example, maybe I'm the lead teacher to help get teachers together and coordinators involved to write those curriculum units. But once they've been written, the bulk of the work is done. The revisions need to be had after the 3 years. So it's a lot about getting the curriculum organized so that it could be implemented. And then once those things have been brought together and the resources have been created, then I can transition back into the classroom, and now I have a new level of capacity that I can be a teacher leader. While my principal may lean on me, my work has been already accomplished because I've done that. But I'll also say it's been an exposure that some of the grant staff that we have currently had have now been pursuing administrative degrees and now are interested in getting into a leadership role because they've had an experience to see what it's like to be involved with the curriculum leadership role. So Dr. Jakes has been very confident with the succession plan that we have had, and the teachers have been very responsive. And I'll also say some have decided to, because of their own choices, they knew the funding was coming to an end. They're already looking to either have left School District 5, a few people have, or already have plans after the grant has ended what they plan to do. Not they're leaving School District 5, but they just have their next aspirations that they have planned to pursue.
Mr. White?
And I may be saying something very similar to what we're all kind of hitting at, but it seems to me that, we're kind of re-engineering the model of how we draw kids into programs, and maybe it was already said, but one benefit I think of that is if kids are drawn to something, maybe they're going to excel in ways that they wouldn't before, but it piques their particular interests or desires in ways that they may not get sitting in sort of the vanilla panoply of courses or whatever. But it seems to me, and this is not anything other than just me saying it'd be nice as you go through that, like if you've got the ability to transition the learning and the processes and the curriculum into the schools before the grant runs out. But even if there is an FTE adjustment up, it seems like maybe we ought to be looking at trying to strategically not basically take away from the program, but if there are other positions or programs that are phasing out, that we trade off these FTEs, because we really are going to be in a difficult world in the future, and we don't want to lose the value of everything you're creating. So all I'm suggesting is that it sounds like y'all are doing, and you got your heads on it now, but it seems like we need to really focus on being strategic.
Absolutely.
So that we can emerge in this, I don't want to say a zero-sum game, but we all need to be aiming towards that, because we got some bumpy roads ahead.
And if I could just say from my experience, there's always an element of risk with a grant. If we didn't move forward because we didn't know what would happen at the end of the grant period, I think we would deny ourselves, a lot of opportunity. And I think with a grant, sometimes things work perfectly and you want it to continue, and sometimes you find some things work better than others and you make the adjustments. But I would say on the personal side, I had a very secure job as a high school counselor, and I had an opportunity to take a grant-funded position, and I remember my assistant principal said to me, "You're putting your foot on a banana peel." I did, and I've been around a long time thereafter. So I just don't think we can take all of the risk out of it, and that's part of the growth and evolutionary process. And we take what works, and we take a risk, and I think we focus more on what we get from it long-term and keep, and know that there is some element of risk. There will always be some.
Ms. Hammond?
Along what basically we're all saying, I'm just curious, of the 10.3 that we did get, how much of it was spent on personnel and how much was spent on the actual, like a Chromebook or material, I guess, or equipment? Just for and I know that doesn't hold true for every time we get a grant, but I thought that would be a good example for us to look at what was spent of this to help us with the question we're asking.
That's a fair question. I owe you that answer. I did not come prepared with that tonight, but I will say whatever it was, it will be less this time. And I think the schools behind me, they're already nodding their heads. They've already heard that message from me to them as well. So we'll be reducing the personnel allotment that we're pursuing to make sure that it's truly focused on professional development, truly focused on getting the resources needed, the curriculum writing in place to make sure that the theme can occur without relying on additional people. We don't want to send the picture or the message that we're having administrative heavy to implement these grants, because we've not. We've been very cautious with that. But we'll make sure that it's less this time than it was the previous cycle in 2013.
All right, and just to know, I get that point, but say, when you get it for, was this 3 years? Yeah. Do you take that pot of money and spend so much each year? It's not like you take the 10.3 and we get started and spend it all.
Right. Each school writes a budget. The budget, if there are any changes in the budget, we have to get approval from the Department of
So
Education.
each year, the 3, you're going to have your staff come back with the budget.
Right, and
that's where you're talking-
typically, it reduces over the 3 years, so you spend the bulk of the money the first year to get it up and going. The second year, it starts reducing, the third year, it's much more reduced. And there are some opportunities for carryover funds, but we want to make sure that the funds are spent during the grant cycle, because when the audit is done and we're not successfully showing that we've done something, then that's because we've not spent the money. So we've been very persistent to make sure we have stuck to the schedule of the budget that we designed previous to 2013.
But that would be a good example for us to see.
Absolutely.
When you get it.
I'll get that
we've
for you.
got time. This is just discussion. So.
Certainly.
Yeah, that's great. Ms. Baumgartner?
I just want to say I'm very excited about these programs, and, some of them just seem like a natural evolution, the STEM to STEAM and the Montessori, but I'm real excited about having the Performing Arts magnet at Nursery Road. It has always been there, and now we're making it official, because anybody who's had any dealings with Ms. Ligon and with Ms. Brooks, it's there. So I'm very excited, because we needed that continuity to
Absolutely.
go into Irmo High School. And if we don't start at elementary school, it's too late.
Absolutely.
So I'm very excited about all of these. And
Thank you, thank you. Thank you so much, Dr.
Absolutely.
Melton. Appreciate it, and appreciate the board's questions. Before we go to the superintendent's goals, I'd like to make a request that we turn the air conditioning down. It is freezing up here. I even polled a few
Turn it
people.
up?
Well, turn the air conditioning off,
cold.
whatever. It is
Temperature.
freezing.
I actually agree.
Right here.
Make it warmer, thank you.
I think it's cold outside.
Because I'm cold.
Well, I feel,
You're under the,
I would,
yeah, there's a,
I don't
I asked Mr. Gant,
Back home.
just to make sure it wasn't just me, since I'm so
Not just
cold.
you.
And then if Miss Lovelace is cold, we know
Oh,
it is an iceberg.
We can hang meat.
Yeah, we can hang meat, so, because we want to be able to enjoy our conversation and to hear the superintendent's goals. Well, unless that was a plan.
It could have been, maybe next time.
Get us out of here.
Just cleared the room.
Thank you for being here.